Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Amy Foley with us. She is CEO and founder at Inbound Back Office. So we're going to talk about a bunch of interesting things, including white label staffing and recruiting for marketing agencies, which is also my core clientele. We're going to talk about productivity, entrepreneurship, virtual assistants, AI, scaling your business. My name is Charles. I'm your host and founder at ceowisdompodcast.com. If you want to start, scale, be invited to a podcast like this one, go to podfire.com. That's my podcasting agency. If you want to learn from people like Amy, if you want to connect with them, build your network, get subscribers, grow your audience, and even get clients and leads, a podcast can help you do that. Podfire.com. Amy, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and about your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the co-founder of Inbound Back Office. And like you said, we are a white label staffing and recruiting company that serves marketing agencies and consultants. We also do a lot of work with HubSpot partners. And the company started essentially with just me. I was trying to start freelancing as a virtual assistant, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I reached out to a couple of people on Twitter who were looking for virtual assistants, and 3 of them hired me right away. And then I had to figure out what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. So the very first person who reached out was a marketing agency owner. He was a HubSpot partner, and with their team was willing to teach me everything about HubSpot and inbound marketing. And so from there, he started referring me to all of his colleagues who are also agency owners. And so that's kind of where the niche of marketing agencies kind of developed, just kind of organically like that. And then, a couple of years later, that client asked if, I would be interested in partnering and kind of building it up into like a real business. And so we did that. And in 2018, we came out, we were incubated within his agency for about a year before that. And in 2018, we brought it out on its own, and it's been, growing ever since. We're up to about approximately 70 team members at this point. They're all part-time employees. They're all US based. And it's been a great experience nurturing the team to kind of run without Michael and I at this point. So we're we have very little involvement of the day-to-day, and our team really handles everything.
So your shift from corporate to startup world, how did it happen? Why did you felt the necessity to branch out by yourself?
Yeah, so when my son was 3 years old, he broke his femur. And when you're that young and you break your femur, they put you in like a half body cast. And so it required 2 adults just to move him. So we had to be there for a month until the cast came off. So I was working full time in the corporate world, and I asked if I could work from home. Like, I knew it was possible. I didn't know the logistics of it, but I knew that it could be done. And they initially said no, but I was able to convince them to let me, because I could not afford a month without being paid. And so they let me, and I realized that like it was amazing, and I was able to work when I had energy and when I had the time, and I was getting so much more done in less hours. And when I went back, I asked if there was some way we could do like part-time work from home, just like anything. And they said, absolutely not. So that's when I knew that I had to start looking for something working from home. So I was able to I found a part-time job initially working from home that I did on the nights and weekends. And then eventually that turned into a full-time job. And so then I was working from home for another company. And that's when I started freelancing on the side, once I figured out the logistics of working from home, because that was before it was a thing. That was in 2011. So like, there was nothing out there about how to work from home like there is now. And so I was just kind of figuring it out on my own. And once I got the processes and systems down, I realized that I could do my full-time job in essentially part-time hours. So I had some extra time on my hands. So I decided to, see if I could make freelancing a thing on the side. Never intended to make it a business. I just wanted some extra money and to not be bored. And so, but it just kind of snowballed. And once it snowballed and I was doing really well, I hired a business coach to show me how to make that into an actual business so that I could quit the full-time job. And then we got there much quicker than I had anticipated. And I just kind of jumped off the cliff and said, hey, I'm leaving this full-time job. And the stress of having to replace that income so quickly really made me step up my game and, put everything into it and build it really quickly.
Wow. You couldn't afford 1 month, so you decided to jump into entrepreneurship and not get paid for 3 months.
Exactly.
Yeah, because sales cycles, especially when you're started, there's so many things to do. But you took the jump, and yeah, glad that you were able to make it. And that was way before COVID, so that was like working from a distance before that all started. I also started day one working remotely. Around this time I started my agency, so 8 years ago. What challenges have you faced till then, and how did you solve these challenges?
Well, one big challenge was that I had young children. I had one in kindergarten who was going half day and one who was in full day school, but it was very challenging trying to build a business and work full time and take care of little ones. And make sure that my marriage was good and all of that as well. Like, just trying to manage it all was really a challenge. I had a dedicated office area, but it didn't have a door, and so there were lots of interruptions all the time, and I'm not great at setting boundaries, so that was always a challenge for me. But eventually we worked through those, just kind of, figuring out what worked well for us. Another challenge that I had was when deciding when to hire my first contractor, because obviously, I was keeping money in, like, I had a goal of like, here, I'm going to set so much money aside before I start taking any money home. But then I was like, well, if I need to hire somebody, I have to pay them regularly. And so, like, just trying to figure out how I was going to make that work financially. And was it going to, make sense in the long run to try to build more business and hire people? Like, is that the direction I wanted to go? Or did I want to keep it just myself? And so that, and then, hiring is always a challenge, because you just, people interview really well, and then you get started, you put all this time into them, and then they end up, especially online, they end up ghosting you, or they just don't live up to what they said they would do. And that was always really, really a big challenge of mine, was just the people part. And when you start out as a solopreneur and you're just doing everything yourself, everything has your name on it. Like, so even if they're doing work in the background that I'm delivering to the client, like, it's still just me in the client's eyes. So, making sure that quality is where it always had been when it was just me doing it. Like, that was always very time consuming and a big challenge as well. Just because I wanted to keep that quality at the same level. It was really hard for me to give up that control. But it's definitely something that I've learned to do over the years. Obviously, now I don't do any of the day-to-day, and the team does everything. So I've given up all the control.
How hard was that?
It wasn't really hard. It took a little while, but we've had a lot of team members who've been with us essentially since the beginning. And we just kind of organically, each service area had like one person on it, until we had too much work for that one person in that area. And then we would talk about hiring a second person. And then just as naturally happens, the person who's been there the longest and who knows all the clients, et cetera, they kind of rise to the top and become the manager of that little team. And so that kind of happened organically on all the teams. And then we got to a point where there were so many team members that we needed help managing all the team members. And so that's where, these two people on our team who had been there forever, just kind of naturally, their talents and their skills kind of naturally filled in those roles. And it just kind of worked out really well. We didn't really set the intention from the very beginning that we were going to build it up in that way. But then as we saw it unfolding organically like that, we realized, hey, this could actually work out really well. So, it wasn't hard, but it definitely, wasn't easy either, if that makes sense.
Yeah, how does your team use AI nowadays? Because I'm not too bullish on humans nowadays. Like you say, they give up sooner or later. They don't have much skin in the game. So it's just like their incentive to maximize cash and minimize energy output in most businesses until they have skin in the games and become owners or so forth. So how do you have your team use AI, and how can you 10x the productivity of one member using 10 AIs, let's say, to help him accomplish or her work?
Yeah, so a lot of our work is creative for marketing agencies. So we do kind of have to put some boundaries around AI because we want to have original work and work that sounds like it's from a human being. So we will use AI to maybe generate ideas of, for example, on the content team, we won't have AI create an entire blog post, but we will have AI, maybe generate some ideas for blog posts in a specific area. And then from there, we might, draft it out and then maybe run it through AI to make sure that it sounds good or something like that. But the real creative work, we make sure that the team members are always doing those things. Because really what I find, as far at least for our team anyway, for these people that we hire, they are experts in their field. And one thing that motivates them is the ability to be able to bring their creativity to what they're doing. And so I think that if we were to bring in AI in a heavier way, they might actually lose motivation because they aren't able to use their creativity as much. So we use it sparingly at this point. Who knows what may happen in the future. It does seem to be growing pretty quickly.
Yeah, blog posts, mid-journey image generators. I think I reached out to you through AI, which is Apollo, and that certainly helps. How I produce this podcast, the full backend is using AI tools. I pull out my list with Claude.ai and so forth, which is like a better ChatGPT. It's pretty surprising what we can achieve on that level. Talking about level and label, can you tell me a bit more about the white label model? Why is it advantageous to have that once? It's just like the classic model. Well, there's a bunch of models. First, I hire you, you hire someone for me, and then I give you like 25% of their salary. You can rent me, human, quote unquote. So you just invoice me at the end of the month. In your case, it's that you literally, well, I guess you're still invoicing me from the folks that fully work only for me in my business. So what's the advantage of the white label model?
Yeah. So for the staffing augmentation piece, what is attractive to our clients in that is that, they want someone, because of the fluctuations of how their business works, like it ebbs and flows, with their work. They have slow seasons and they have, booming seasons. It can be hard for them to pay full-time staff consistently when their business isn't super consistent. So for us, we are on demand. So there's no minimums and there's no monthly fees or anything like that. So it's truly, when you need our help, we are there. And, no one has to know that you're using a separate company to fulfill their work. And so you have the work, you contact us, we help with the work. And then in the times when you don't have any work to give out, you don't have to contact us and we're not going to bill you anything. So it's super flexible for them. And it ends up costing them way less in the long run than hiring someone in-house. Now, on the flip side, we also have, the recruiting piece, where if they do want someone in-house for a particular role, or maybe a role that our staff augmentation services don't cover, for example, maybe like a business development representative, we typically don't have that as a service. So they could hire us to find, several candidates that meet their needs, and then they could select one. And we're charging a flat fee for that. So not a percentage of the salary. So it's just a flat fee of $5,000. So that ends up being way more affordable for many agencies. So, just giving them options of what works best for their agency and that particular need.
How do you get your clients? What's your go-to-market process? Do you use any cold outreach? For example, I outreach a bunch to these agencies via cold email with AI and very personalized way at scale. So I get a bunch of them buying my services on a weekly basis. How do you go with the sales process on your end?
Yeah, so most of it is either referrals from current clients, or it is outreach from us on LinkedIn. So we recruit. I do kind of cold outreach to marketing agency owners via LinkedIn to be on our podcast. So we have a podcast and we interview marketing agency owners. And so I ask them to be on the podcast, and many times it results in also a sales call, like because they've never heard of us before, but then they look into us for potentially being on our podcast. And then they go, oh, that actually looks really interesting. Tell me more about your business. And so that turns into a sales call. So that's been a good chunk of our business. We also do a lot of networking in like HubSpot user groups, where people will say, hey, I'm looking for, someone who can help with XYZ. And then we'll chime in with like, hey, we offer this service, book a call and we can chat about it. So we get a lot of business from there, but we've never done any advertising. We've never paid for any advertising. It's just been, it's been mostly like relationship building. So I've done a lot of networking on LinkedIn with people where, they might not be ready for someone yet on their team, but when they are ready, they know that I'm there and they think of me first because I've been building this relationship over time.
The podcast, have you also been using it as a learning tool like I did? I mean, I don't even read books nowadays. I just interview CEOs, 15 of them a day, and I get my information from there. And then I put it into action, into practice as an experiment, and I evaluate if it's good or not. So it's a full circle in terms of learning, action, and results. Have you been using it that way to grow your network and to also get potential leads?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we have our podcast guests select the topic that they talk about based on either what they specialize in or something that they're super passionate about, because we think of our podcast as a great big like mastermind group for people in the marketing industry, essentially. And so it is a huge learning tool. There are so many different things that people have brought to the podcast that it just, I mean, we're over 300 episodes at this point. So, and each episode is a super unique topic that is definitely relevant to anyone in the marketing industry.
In terms of goals, what do you have on your end for the rest of this year? Seems you're onto lots of things. What's your focus?
Yeah, we just launched the recruiting side of the business. So our goal now is to build that up more. Since we have the systems and processes really down for the staff augmentation side, the recruiting side is really in its infancy. So we're working on learning more about how that's going to work, and honing our processes and really making that a solid, service. And hopefully by the first of the year, we will have a really great service that has been used multiple times.
And I'm just curious, like on your end, if you would be on your deathbed, like in 10 decades from now, because we're gonna live a while, us in this
Yes.
generation, what would you want to have accomplished? What is your life purpose?
Oh, that is a great question.
It's a big one.
It really is. So I hope that I have, with the business specifically, I hope that one of my goals is to make sure that I help people have a flexible place to work, because that's essentially what I was looking for. And so we employ a lot of parents, some people who are not parents, but a lot of parents who still want to keep their skills sharp, but need some flexibility in their life. And so that's really one of the main goals that I had with building this business, once I realized we were going to actually have like a team. And so that's like a huge thing, is making sure that our team members feel like they have super flexibility and a great job that allows them to still be professional, but also be a parent. And also teaching my children that, you don't necessarily have to have these grandiose goals to be able to do something great. Like, things just might evolve and you might build it into something great without any real formal knowledge. I mean, at the time, I hadn't finished my bachelor's degree. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have a lot of education in building a business. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just kind of made it up as I went along. And I failed a lot, which was great because I learned a lot. And just making sure that I have enjoyed the journey all along. You know.
Love it. And where can people find out more about you, Amy?
Yeah, so our website is inboundbackoffice.com, and I am very active on LinkedIn. Just look for me, Amy Foley.
And I'm Charles Cormier, host at founderwisdompodcast.com. If you want to start your podcast, scale one, or be invited to one, you can go to podbuyer.com. That was Amy Foley.